Hi, everybody. My name is Daryl Aldor, Worldwide Senior Sales Manager here at iDrive. And joining me today is Joel Pinedo, our Senior Support Engineer.
Hello, Daryl. Hello, everyone. Glad to be here.
Thanks for joining, Joel. So
No problem.
today's focus on today's webinar is ransomware proofing Kubernetes with Veeam Kasten and immutable iDrive E2 storage. Ransomware has evolved beyond traditional servers and VMs. It's now a Kubernetes and cloud native problem. In a 2025 global study of 3,400 IT and security leaders, ransomware recovery still averages over $1.5 million. And nearly half of these organizations pay a ransom, often because they lack clean, isolated, immutable backups. So today, we'll show you how Veeam Kasten, a purpose-built for Kubernetes solution, combined with an iDrive E2 immutable object storage platform, provides a practical, cost-effective way to protect containerized workloads so you could recover with confidence. A little bit about iDrive. We've been in the data protection space for over 24 years, serving SMB, enterprise, education, and government customers globally. We protect over 5 million users worldwide. We also manage over an exabyte of data, which gives us a deep experience operating storage at scale. From a compliance standpoint, we're SOC 2, HIPAA, GDPR, and ISO 27001 and 2022 certified, which is critical for regulated Kubernetes workloads. iDrive E2 is secure. It's an S3 compatible object storage platform designed to deliver high performance at a fraction of hyperscaler costs. Our customers typically see up to 90% savings compared to Amazon S3 without sacrificing speed or reliability. This makes E2 an ideal target, not just for Kubernetes backups, but also for long-term retention, DR, and ransomware safe storage. Kubernetes environments are often distributed, and backup performance is heavily impacted by latency. iDrive E2 operates 13 global regions across the United States, Canada, Europe, and Asia, allowing you to place backup data close to your clusters. This improves Veeam Kasten backup performance, supports data sovereignty requirements, and it also adds geo-resiliency. These next slides are based on a real-world ransomware survey of 3,400 IT and security leaders across 17 countries. They highlight why ransomware remains a business-critical risk, even for organizations with modern infrastructure. So for the third year in a row, attackers took advantage of security gaps, driving 32% of these attacks. But operational issues, they still dominate because of lack of expertise, unknown security gaps, and staffing constraints account for over 40% of these incidents. This is exactly where automated, immutable backup strategies become essential. Only 50% of attacks now involve encryption, but data exfiltration, it's still rising, affecting over 28% of these victims. Despite this, backup usage for recovery is at a 6-year low, even though 90% of encrypted data was recoverable when backups existed. This gap between capability and execution is what the attackers exploit. While median ransom payments dropped to about $1 million, nearly half of the organizations, they still pay. And only 29% pay the original demand. Many more pay more of the ransom, and they also experience extended downtime. With immutable backups, ransomware attackers lose all their leverage. Even excluding ransom, recovery still costs an average of $1.53 million. And the good news is that organizations with strong recovery strategies are rebounding faster. 53% recover within a week. This is where Kubernetes aware backups and offsite immutability make a measurable difference. Ransomware isn't just a technical issue. It does have a human cost, and teams are reporting increased stress, burnout, leadership turnover, and even staff absence. Resilient backup architecture protects not just the data, but the people and the operations behind it. I'm going to pass it over to Joel to talk more about Veeam Kasten.
Thank you, Daryl. Those were some very insightful statistics. All right, here you can see the slide shows a broad overview of the features and capabilities Veeam Kasten provides. But before we get started on explaining the Veeam Kasten platform, let's first discuss what the word Kubernetes even means. We have been talking about this word throughout the entire presentation. And by the way, Daryl, fun fact, Google came out with the name Kubernetes, which stands for helmsman in Greek. Who knew, right? I mean, I did because we had to do the research.
Good to know.
Yep. So what is Kubernetes? Kubernetes is an open source platform that automates the deployment, scaling, and management of containerized applications. It also allows developers to focus more on application development rather than getting bogged down by infrastructure management. However, just like other software platforms, Kubernetes is vulnerable to ransomware. That is where Veeam Kasten comes in. Veeam Kasten is number one Kubernetes backup that is cloud native and purpose-built for Kubernetes. It offers end-to-end security that supports different authentication technologies and encryption. And Veeam Kasten focuses on day two data management challenges. So what does that mean? Day zero, you're thinking of your Kubernetes deployment. Day one, you are in pre-production and testing the Kubernetes deployment. Day two, you are in production thinking about backups, recovery, and application mobility. Day two is where Veeam Kasten lives, and Veeam Kasten's mission is to tackle those day two data management challenges. It ensures application consistent backups, capturing all data, including stateful applications. It also facilitates quick granular recovery of applications, workloads, and individual files, minimizing downtime. Veeam Kasten has extensive support, including every Kubernetes distro, as well as different public cloud vendors and storage partners like iDrive E2. And Daryl, I don't know if you knew this, but that's us.
Thanks, Joel.
Yep.
Change the slide over for you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, now let's talk about some Veeam Kasten use cases. There is backup management, where you can schedule and automate backups for applications and persistent volumes. Data isolation and continuity, so you can separate backup and production environments to ensure clean restores, thus reducing downtime and ensure operational resilience. Point-in-time recovery, so you can restore environments to specific states after ransomware corruption. And then there's business compliance, so you can ensure compliance with audit standards and corporate regulations. All right, that about wraps up the overview of Veeam Kasten. Now I'm going to hand it back to Daryl to discuss why iDrive E2 and Veeam Kasten.
Thanks, Joel. So together, Veeam Kasten and iDrive E2 deliver secure, scalable offsite Kubernetes backups using native S3 integration. iDrive E2 adds object lock immutability, versioning, custom retention, geo-replication, and audit logging, strengthening ransomware resilience while keeping costs under control. Object lock ensures that once backups are written, they cannot be deleted, they cannot be altered or overridden. Compliance mode ensures absolute immutability. It enforces that. While governance mode allows controlled administrative access. This is the foundation of ransomware-safe backups and legal defensibility. For our Veeam users, we're offering a 50% discount off the first year. starting at $19.75 for 1 terabyte. We do have larger plans available, and we also offer a free 7-day trial. This is a low-risk way to add immutable off-site ransomware protection to your Kubernetes environment. Let me pass the reins over to Joel to start his technical demo. I'll stop sharing my screen now.
All right, thank you, Daryl. Before we get started on the technical demo, integrating iDrive E2 with Veeam Kasten, let's go over some prerequisites. So we're going to need to have a Kubernetes environment with Veeam Kasten installed, an object lock enabled iDrive E2 bucket, as well as access keys for that iDrive E2 bucket. Those are about the only requirements here. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So give me a minute here to get it set up, and I can share my screen with you guys.
Great. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. All right. Daryl, can you see my screen?
I can.
All right, perfect. All right, so what you're seeing here is the Veeam Kasten dashboard. So Veeam Kasten is installed on a local Kubernetes environment, and I did deploy one app here. So it's just a simple Nginx app deployment so that we can test the backup and then also demonstrate immutability. So because we have to demonstrate immutability, I've already created a location profile as well as a policy for the snapshot backups. But we're going to go ahead and go through it together here. So what we're going to get started here is the location profile. So this is where you tie in the iDrive E2 bucket with Veeam Kasten. So as I mentioned before, we need to have an object lock enabled bucket. So here in the iDrive E2 dashboard, you can see we are going to be using this bucket labeled Veeam Kasten. And if I go into the settings, you'll see here that object lock is enabled. So the prerequisite is there. And I'm going to go back to the Veeam Kasten dashboard. So all we need to do is click new profile. We're going to name this iDrive E2. And I am going to select S3 compatible because that's what we are. We are S3 compatible object storage. And then you hit next. So here, Veeam Kasten is requiring a few different things. So all of this information can be obtained through iDrive E2. And you do that by selecting access keys on the left here, and then generating an access key, granting access to that bucket. So when that is generated, it will go ahead and populate all these different fields that we need to input. So that would be the access key, the secret key, the endpoint URL, as well as the region code. So you'll just copy and paste all that information over, and then you're going to be putting the name of the bucket. So for our use case here, it would be the Veeam Kasten, and then you type that in here. Last but not least, you do want to make sure you enable immutable backups. Very important. So when you click this toggle, it'll validate all the settings that you input, and then it'll give you a slider. So that slider, you can select the retention period for the objects to be immutable. And by default, I believe it's 90 days, but you can change that depending on what your needs are. And then you just hit next and then finish. Since I've already done this, I'm just going to discard that and go to the policies section. So this is where you're setting up a schedule for the snapshots to take place. So this would be for our Nginx app. And we're going to go ahead and create new policy. I'm going to name this Nginx, and I'm just going to put backup 2. And we're taking a snapshot of that application. Here we're selecting the frequency. So for the demo, we can just select daily here. And here, if you toggle this setting, advanced frequency options, you can change the time in which you want the snapshot to take place. For the sake of the demo, I'm just going to keep it as is. And then you can also change the retention schedule. So once again, I'm just going to keep it at the default settings here, but it is customizable. And all of the settings that we've entered here so far are for the local snapshot. This doesn't account for the export of the snapshot to that iDrive E2 bucket. So what you need to do is you need to make sure that this is toggled on. And here you can change a few settings. I'm just going to keep it at the daily snapshot. So it's going to export every daily snapshot. And we're going to be selecting the profile that we created beforehand. So this is that iDrive E2 bucket. And I'm just going to keep this the same. If you are creating this from scratch, I mean the policy, by the way, if you're creating this from scratch, then you're going to need to make sure that you are selecting the app that you want to back up. So for this demo here, I'm just going to select that Nginx app. And that's about it. So that's all the settings we need to put on this policy. And these are just advanced options. We're not going to touch that on this demo. And that's all that's required. So now you've selected that app to be snapshotted daily and then exported to that iDrive E2 bucket. All right, since I've already done this prior, I'm just going to hit cancel. And then you can see I'm going to head back to the main dashboard and go to the latest backup. You'll see that all the data was exported successfully. And I'm going to head back to the iDrive E2 dashboard. And I'm going to demonstrate the immutability. So I'm going to drill down into this bucket, the Veeam Kasten bucket, and go to this backup folder. And I'm going to drill down here, show all the versions. Now I'm going to go pick a random object from the actual backup that took place. So what you're seeing right now is just like logs. So this is an actual object. I am going to select that object, and then I'm going to attempt a deletion. And you can see here, the object was protected because of the retention period. So we selected immutable backups in Veeam Kasten, as well as made sure that the bucket was object lock enabled. All right, so that about wraps up this technical demo. I'm going to hand it back to Daryl to do some final remarks.
Perfect, Joel. Thanks for sharing. And for those of you who'd like further information or possibly schedule a personalized web demonstration or introductory call, feel free to reach out to us. And until next time, thanks for joining us.